morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this edition of SRE Practitioner Series. I'm your host, Suresh GP. We are on episode number 2. Today, I have an esteemed guest joining us all the way from Germany, Mr. Vikalp Yadav, Senior Director, Head of Operations, Site Reliability Engineering and E-Commerce at Adidas. Thanks, Vikalp, for joining us today, and I hope you're doing well and happy Diwali.
Thank you, Suresh, and very happy Diwali to you too as well.
Excellent. So, Vikalp, in our series of SRE practitioners, we interview practitioners in their journey of experiences and wisdom of production. So, before we get started, why don't you give us your experience and journey around the site reliability engineering space, and why are you excited about site reliability engineering?
Yeah, thanks. So site reliability engineering is something which has been like super close to my heart, and especially this journey that I'm having in my current organization. I've evolved myself as so by heart, I'm an ABAPer or a coder from the beginning. But I've evolved this journey personally from my side in terms of getting more and more closer to the consumer, which means learning more about analytics, business intelligence, so on. And then from there, moving into this setup of e-commerce and being more and more closer to the end consumer, trying to provide the best, reliable, and a premium experience on our .com stores. So this is the journey that we have taken across, that I personally have evolved myself along with my team as well. And what excites me is how just by the matter of having a seamless consumer experience, a reliable consumer experience, you can impact the top and the bottom line of an organization. And that's what drives me.
Excellent. So starting off, in many of the organizations we have seen, because there's already people sold out on Agile and DevOps, right? We've been doing it since 2001. So how do you sell the value of SRE, or Site Reliability Engineering, in an environment which is mostly focused on Agile and DevOps?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Suresh. And there are two dimensions for this. So one of the myth that typically while starting to sell the site reliability engineering concept comes into place, that site reliability engineering is only for tech organization. Right. But trust me, that's not what it is. That's what at least I've experienced. And the second thing is DevOps and then Agile setup. These are what I've realized, that these are really those collaboration templates that come into play, which helps you bring the best practices out. And jumping into an SRE based mindset just supplements or complements what we are doing in that template and giving you much more prescriptive view of how you achieve those targets, those aims of resilience, reliability, and stability.
Excellent. Now, so it's also a notion, Vikalp, that site reliability engineering makes a lot more sense to get that 10x effect on a cloud native environment. But most of the financial services industry and even the retail industry, of course, retail is an exception because they are already into cloud native, they are into that next big wave. But for organizations around legacy environment, what value can SRE bring to make it reality? So is there still a merit to do site reliability engineering for a legacy monolithic applications?
Yeah. So I think one of the learnings that I've had in this journey is it is not one size that fits all. But especially in setups which are monolith in nature, while site reliability engineering works well in a well-gelled manner in a microservice-based environment, the monoliths at times are challenged with the scale, the size, the volume of code that flows in, which on top definitely adds the level of complexity, the level of dependency, and at times also adds inertia to the fast-paced change that the corresponding counterparts would require in the whole end-to-end ecosystem. And bringing this thought process, this mindset of looking at the same set of KPIs for those monoliths in a different perspective adds a fast track pace to changes. fast track, scenarios where you are able to be much more closer to your end consumer. And that's one benefit I clearly see where organizations could use as a potential selling point as well.
Right. And in terms of the common challenges and pitfalls that you see while implementing SRE model, because everybody wants to jump the bandwagon, they want to get quick results, faster delivery. They want to get something to the business saying that, you know what, SRE actually made that like a magic wand. So what are some of the common challenges or pitfalls that you consider while implementing an SRE model?
Yeah. Actually, I really like that word which you mentioned, SRE as the magic wand. And when sometimes the practitioners or the leaders who want to bring this change around, at times one of the common pitfall is kind of selling SRE as the magic wand. So this is definitely one of the key pitfalls that one needs to avoid. But while doing, I think one of the important things is that these initiatives are engineering initiatives, and the why behind those initiatives needs to be super clear.
Right.
The why clear. One of the common pitfalls that I've experienced in my in my journey and also talking to some of the peers in the industry is lack of executive sponsorship of such bottoms-up changes, because this is completely a transformation which involves mindset change, the way in which you look at some core KPIs, and sponsorship from the executive leadership is very important in this case. That's one common pitfall which teams at times ignore, and the initiatives get shelved in pilots as well. Another pitfall is, and this is typically also some I've talked to some of my colleagues in the SAP side of the world, or on the which has more monolith structures. There's a pitfall of rebranding an existing level 1, level 2 operations team into a site reliability engineering team. And those skill sets are completely different. The mindset is completely different. So this is one pitfall that we need to avoid. Otherwise, you won't be able to bring that change that you want to bring with that site reliability engineering point of view. I would say the last one is, once one, and this is something that I faced very recently, where one of my consulting organizations, they had warned me that, Vikalp, when you are in a phase where you have a strong adoption of this thought process, you would be struggling to keep up with the pace of the demand that is coming for site reliability engineering in your organization. And I went through this, and the pitfall is under preparedness for the next phase once you're able to sell the idea. So these are the 3 key learnings I would like to call out, saying avoid these pitfalls: executive sponsorship, avoid rebranding, and be prepared once you're successful.
Excellent point. And so how do you measure the value of SRE in organizations, and what metrics are worth following? Because at the end of the day, every CXO that I'm talking about ask me this question before we come into consulting, say, hey, what value is site reliability engineering going to get? And what will be the tangible metrics that we can start measuring the performance of the team, the performance of the line of business, and also effectively that customer experience index? So how do you kind of suggest some of the most common metrics that you think would be worth exploring?
Yeah. So maybe the question is that you're asking is, what could be that metrics which also I would use to demonstrate success of this initiative of site reliability engineering, and also what is that same metrics which would also help me to my business consumer and explain why site reliability engineering is important. So I think I would take the question in that sense, and would see that we evolved in a journey. The journey that I took, we evolved from just using the basic traditional KPIs of I'm having a P1 issue resolved within 95% of the SLA or 99% of these were the traditional ones that we used in the old school setup. Then we moved towards a scenario where we are looking at we need something much better. So we looked at how do we look at TTXs, the mean time to detect, mean time to restore. These were some of the KPIs, but these KPIs were still not clicking with our business counterparts because, yeah, you're detecting it, you're solving it, it's operational. Good. But then when our sponsors, when our counterparts start to listen, when there is, dollar value associated to that. And the challenge was, how do you get that metrics in? The metrics that we nailed down, the killer KPI that I prefer using is a percentage revenue bleed for any given interruption versus the net sales that we make for a given period of time. And this KPI is one single language that my engineering team, irrespective of whichever value stream they belong to, or the business counterparts, whichever product areas they belong to, all of them speak the same language. This KPI helps us get a strong buy-in on the initiatives that we propose and keeps us true to a common platform of measure.
Excellent. So you talked about value streams. I'm quite keen to look at how did you develop these value streams and how matured is our organizations worldwide adapting to the concept of value streams? Because I still seem to be that one is to move away from a project-centric approach to a product-centric approach. I think fairly we have done a reasonable amount of movement towards any space of e-commerce and retail channels. But in terms of value streams and organizing these value streams effectively and having an end-to-end view of these value streams, how easy or difficult was it to go through that journey?
This was also a learning that came into picture. Typically, what I've worked in is product-led organization, which means you have structured the consumer journey into various small buckets of product. But then, and that too, these products or the consumer journey in products is structured in a way where you are able to constantly deliver it in an agile ecosystem, agile DevOps ecosystem. When you cluster products in a way which helps you to directly connect to one specific, for me, value stream would be more on the lines of experience. So you cluster the product in a way where you're able to connect to a given experience and sequentially add value in terms of dollar, in terms of stability directly to the consumer. For example, if you're looking at an e-commerce website, consumer goes through 2 or 3 key value stream journeys. One would be, how is your branding experience, which is how good your look and feel of a product could be. And the second one is their complete purchasing experience. They check out in the cart and then they make the payments. The third value stream, which adds value to the consumer, is how you're playing the loyalty programs and the membership. So these could be some examples of value stream. But yeah, to your question around how I see some of the peer organizations structuring value streams, I've talked to a couple of retailers here in Germany. Just last week, there was a session with one of the CTOs for a major retailer. I was surprised to see that in there, the value streams were more aligned or associated towards the technical stack.
Right.
And this is something which is slightly different, but from a maturity point of view, I think I've seen organizations now more and more thinking about moving towards a value stream scenario and directly impacting consumer-based KPIs.
Excellent. So I think there's a point about customer experience index that you mentioned is a very valuable trait moving forward on that. Now, coming to the aspect of culture change, we all know about that, the emphasis of mindset change, trying to develop a sense of shared ownership. So how do you create that necessary culture change to build that sense of shared ownership? Let me give an example. Now, typically, we have measured developers by the defects per lines of code or the number of user stories released as part of the sprint. Now, in terms of having across the value chain, a sense of shared ownership where everybody starts to focus on one single key metric has been always a challenge because that's not the way typically we have measured them. So in that case, how have you had the experience of creating that culture change towards the sense of shared ownership?
The requirement for getting this culture change springs from the scenario where in a product base, when you look at product, based view of an experience, and when you look at value stream based view of an experience, the ownerships are slightly different. What it means is, in the new DevOps world that we are looking at, the teams are super, in a T-shaped team, the teams are super expert in their given area. And but a consumer experience or value stream consists of 1, 2, 3, 4 various products. So the ask was, how do you bring all these various silos into one picture? And that ask was primarily which was triggering our ask to see having a single ownership along that value stream with a clear. The key to that was having one single champion, site reliability engineering champion, which would bring all these various silos together with one experience view. So, but this required organizational changes. This required continuous coaching, training of the team members who are joining in. And this also required top-down, bottoms-up alignments on some of the core KPIs, especially the killer KPI, which is then taken as a common platform for all measurements.
Excellent. So what does that future look for SRE professionals? Because we see a lot of time, we've been spending a lot of time and effort in working with managed service providers, financial services, retail companies around the journey of SRE, and we all know SRE as a space is exploding. So what would be the future look like for site reliability engineering professionals?
I think the journey for site reliability engineering has just started. I mean, this is where we see now even the non-technology based organizations more and more keen to adopt that mindset. And the journey is, I would say 2022, 23, the journey is exponential. What it also means is that if I'm a site reliability engineer, I need to build up a profile which is similar to a Superman. And except for the cape, the skill sets that I carry would be on the lines of, I'm an engineer. At the same time, I'm an operational expert as well, which means I would bring in experiences around performance testing, around how to fine tune performances from a server platform point of view, or from a database point of view, from an application point of view, from a networking point of view. That skill set becomes hot. At the same time, my experiences on the CI/CD pipeline, how I'm able to define, structure that becomes hot as well. So I would, if I'm a site reliability engineer, I would be keenly looking towards the next 2 to 3 years, how I upskill myself and add value to my resume in the next years.
Excellent. So my final question, Vikalp, is that organizations on SRE, one of the things is about building that necessary skill set, roadmap for building in that SRE pool. So how easy or difficult, how much time does it take to build an SRE skill set? Considering everybody is in-house, they go through this whole journey of becoming so-called SRE practitioners or evangelists. How much time does it take from a time perspective and from a resource perspective for an organizations to get the value of the investments that they make on building SRE profiles like Y-shaped or cone-shaped profiles?
Yeah. I think your question is two-faceted. One is how long it takes and how long does it take to get an ROI on this. I would second one, because it's a faster one to answer. In my past experience, I've seen ROIs within 12 months itself of setting an SRE organization up. But that is assuming a fact that you have a top-down, the day from which you have a top-down buy-in, you have an executive sponsor, you're able to drive it, bring the organization to a scale within a period of 6 to 8 months, and then start to reap that benefit. That's the kind of time scale if you're looking at, but this is also this is considering some of the caveats, like the organizations have a forward-looking mindset, already cloud-based adoptions. If I'm starting from a monolith perspective, the time frame might be slightly longer. You can add an additional 25% buffer on that time slot that I just mentioned for each of ROI and as well as scaling of a team.
Right. And then I think this is very valuable because probably we might have to have another session specifically around the other aspects of it. But Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and trends around the site reliability engineering. I'm sure our viewers and practitioners would have a good insight about understanding about site reliability engineering. And I hope we will mold and build more SRE practitioners in the future.
Thank you, Suresh. It was my pleasure to be part of this session.
Excellent. Thank you so much.